Brandon, thank you so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. For those not familiar with you, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background, how you got to real estate, and then your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So first of all, just want to say thank you so much for obviously inviting me on. And like I was just saying, um, before this brokerage has been a huge opportunity for me. So just really excited to kind of be on here and share them with you. So my background, when I was so started off working at a local produce shop here at like 14 years old. I got into the workforce super early, just because I wanted to get out there and make some money. So I got in very early, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do through life was probably one of the most challenging things. And I think that the best way that you figure out what you want to do is just by trying a whole bunch of different things. So I was filling shelves at a produce store. Then I got into the military at 16, where I was working in the reserves for quite some time. Then after I graduated high school, pursued the military full time for quite a few years, training all over Canada, learning, incredible lessons of discipline and of leadership and structure, and just, all the things that I really needed at that time of my life. And traveling all around Canada, meeting some of my, still closest friends to this day through the military. And that was a huge thing that shaped me as an individual. And then slowly just realized I wanted something different after that. Just realized this is a bit of a hectic lifestyle. Very, it's for some people, but I was kind of getting ready to step back from the military and find what was going to fuel me even more. So, and then I kind of realized business was the thing. I always knew that I wanted to get into business. I always really enjoyed, just the idea of kind of being, I guess, being in charge of yourself, but also being fully responsible for your results. I really enjoyed that idea, and just wanted to take things on that next level. And that got me into the business kind of sphere and got talking to some people. And then I slowly got into real estate. And, it was after about, I probably had 10 different careers in my past. I did welding. I did commercial diving for a little bit, like underwater welding and working underwater. And because I'm from the East Coast of Canada, so, we're right by the ocean. So a lot of kind of like these like trades jobs, ocean jobs and stuff like that. And eventually came into real estate. And that was where a lot of my closest friends and family were like, I think you found your niche. I think you found what your natural calling is. Because I used to always get in trouble for talking everywhere I went. And now it's something that I can actually put
paid for.
Now I get paid for it. Now I get paid for the relationships, for the fun I can have, for the problem solving, for all the things I've learned through my entire life, through the military and all these different careers and all the disciplines I've had, and just implementing all that into real estate has been my best go so far. So that's how I got into real estate. Kind of a long story short. Actually, my grandfather sold real estate too, so he pretty well came up to me and said, "Look, man," he said, "I see how hard you work," and he said, "There's a huge opportunity here for you if you want to take it seriously." And I never considered myself a real estate agent because I was, trades background, working with my hands, didn't even, think that would be an option, but I always kind of wanted to get into business. And he came and approached me, and then it's been almost, I'm going on 8 years in real estate this December.
And for sake of conversation, so we're going to talk about YouTube. Do you mind if I ask you your production level, and what percentage of that would you guess comes from YouTube?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was figuring that you're going to ask that before we got started. So like my average GCI right now is about 150,000. So that's in my marketplace anywhere from about 15 to 20 deals per year right now, and that's really what I've been averaging. And there's definitely a lot of room for improvement there, but I also value a certain balance in my life as well too, right? Like, so right now, super happy with where everything's at, knowing that there's even further and bigger roofs to hit. So out of a percentage of where that comes from, I'd say it's about 40%. I would say comes from the brand reputation that I've built through my YouTube channel and social media based on what I've learned through the Social Agent Academy, which has actually made my lead generation pretty well my only lead generation is social media. I really don't do much outside of that. I'm a very communicative individual, so I'm going around talking to people all the time, but I don't do mail outs. I don't really do, I don't do door knocking. It's stuff I've done it. It's not like I've never done it. I'll do it for open houses. I'll do it strategically, but it's not a main lead source. My leads mostly come in from people now that see me on social media, and they see the way that I communicate, and they see my brand. They see things that I like, because I try to share as much as possible about myself through different podcasts, things like that. And what that does is it just finds the type of client that wants to work with you, and then they come to me pretty well in a weird way, feeling like they know me before I even know them, which makes it a very smooth transaction, and something that I've just kind of learned to really appreciate, because it's like now I really only want to work with people that are like-minded to me, and that want to work with me, because it just makes for a much better transaction as you're coming in with that type of relationship where they're already trusting you. Then it just makes the entire process so much more enjoyable for both the client and myself too.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot from social media agents in general, in particular social medias where video is a primary driver of content, and that makes sense. We tend to feel like we know our celebrity, our favorite celebrities as well. I'm curious. I may have misheard you. You said about 40% is coming from brand recognition from YouTube.
Yeah.
Where's the other 60% coming from?
Yeah, so I'd say that is so. The other 60% is probably repeat or referral business from past clients, right?
Okay.
So I get a lot of business from people that I've done business with, and then just from my regular network of people. So the reason I say 40% is I'd say about 40% of my deals come from people that I've never reached out to, that I never really like direct marketed or try to start a conversation with, but people that then reached out to me saying, hey, I see what you did for this property, or I seen your video talking about this market update, or I seen this podcast with so-and-so. And so I'd say those connections there, because I try to figure out, I'm like, where's this business coming from? And, like I've had phone calls from people before that say, hey, I'm living in Vancouver, so the other side of Canada, obviously, and I'm on the East Coast here in New Brunswick. And then he says, like, I have a property to sell that I bought 3 years ago. He said, I've been watching your YouTube channel for the last 3 years, and I want you to sell it for me. He goes, I don't have very much time because I just had a new kid, but like whatever documents you need to send me, let me know. Whatever price you think, I'm on board. I trust you completely. Just let me know what we need to do. And it was a crazy time, because it was a 2-minute conversation where I got a $400,000 listing, and it was literally within 2 minutes. And like I was trying to sell myself, and that's where he cut me off. And he went, I actually don't have very much time. I just had a kid. He goes, Brandon, I trust you. I know you. I know you know what you're doing. Just send me the documents. And I was just like, and then like, that's where I was like, oh, this is super powerful. That's where it really clicked. I was like, I'm trying to sell myself, and he's not even letting me. He's just saying, I already know you. And so that was really cool. That was a really, really cool moment. And then, just the stuff of like going around your local area, because a lot of stuff that I do on YouTube is all local to this marketplace here. So, like sometimes people just walk up to me at a grocery store and then ask me like, you look really familiar. Do I know you? And I'll be looking at them going, I know I don't know this person. I've never seen them before. And then, sometimes they're like, I think you're this guy. And then they eventually realize like, oh, you're the agent from YouTube. Right. And then they'll like say hi and walk away or whatever. But it's just kind of like weird interactions like that where I'm going, there's some power behind this. And that's why I wanted to align myself, A, with EXP, B, with the Wolfpack, is because these are all things that Mike Sherrard's always talked about, and that he's really educated people on. Because I started following his YouTube channel to go back to the power of YouTube. I started following his YouTube channel because he was giving away free advice. And that's where I started to learn, like, if you give away value, because this is only something that I find people are really figuring out within the last 5-10 years or so, is that if you give away value, it's like the Gary Vaynerchuk method of jab, 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 right hook, give, and then you ask. So it's like, that's the best sales method. And I seen Mike Sherrard doing that, and that just really inspired me. And I was like, I want to align myself with people like this. And that's where him and I had a conversation. And then I found out about, the benefits of EXP, and then coupling that with the Wolfpack. It was just like a no-brainer. It was like, just, it was a matter of when I'm signing up, not if.
I'm curious. As we do these interviews with a bunch of different agents who focus on different vehicles of lead generation. When I talk to the social media agents, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, which is a search engine, but I also consider it a social media because of the video aspect and the personality. But when I talk to those agents, they all kind of say the same thing, in that they all kind of view, in their own way of putting it, social media as an extension of your database. And whereas before you might have picked up the phone and called or texted or whatever, now your sphere can see you, and you get in their feeds if you're subscribing, or if the algorithm picks up that you like that kind of stuff. Do you suspect that 60%, the repeats and past clients, do you suspect that also is influenced by your YouTube?
100%. Yeah, I would say so. It's not strictly YouTube, but I'd say YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. All three of those are areas that I play around in heavily. That's not to say I'm not on TikTok. I dabble in TikTok. I dabble a little bit in Threads, little bit on X. They're definitely not my favorite, but I'd say my main three breadwinners from just say interactions, client communications, and where I'm getting the most, I'd say business is Facebook, Instagram, and then YouTube. And I find the best way to do it too is like, if you get good at the YouTube videos, because that's probably one of the harder places to get good at, then you can just chop up a lot of that content that you do in the long form and share them on these other platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And then that helps amplify your message and scale your efforts too, because if you do one video, but then you chop it up and you can share it on all these different platforms now, then it's just reaching a broader audience as well. Yeah. And then, like you said, yeah, YouTube's pretty well social media, but it's also a search engine as well because it's owned by Google, and a lot of people go there for information now, right? Like if you're looking to move somewhere, it's pretty common for you to go on YouTube and actually see, because a lot of people are visual learners. So it's a very educational way. I mean, I find I just use YouTube for mostly education, a little bit of entertainment every once in a while, just because that's human nature too, and that's fun to watch and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great tool to be educated on, and so if we can put out value for our marketplace and for our clients, be it in some type of education or entertainment, and that's why sometimes I'll do podcasts, because those can be educating and entertaining, but also conversational. So then you get to actually see somebody's true communication style and their mannerisms, and you feel like you get to understand somebody a lot more in a long form sense, as opposed to very quick clippets that are edited and doctored or whatever, right? Like if you see somebody on a long form that's non-edited, sometimes that can be nice too, because then you're actually getting to see you can read body language. A lot of people can pick up on certain cues and stuff like that too, right? And then also then we get to use our platform to put other people on. There's a lot of times where I was just getting different like investors in the area, or I'd get different, I'd get mortgage brokers on, I'd get some real estate agents on, but sometimes I went completely in a field that I didn't really know much about. And I got like a guy that's like a local UFC fighter on, who was up fighting in Vegas for Dana White's Contender Series, and I brought him in and talked to him for the first time ever on my podcast, and just like local people too. So just really trying to highlight all those things. So sometimes it doesn't even all have to be about real estate. It could just be about finding ways to give value to your marketplace, or find ways to have something that's entertaining as well. And that also just helps to build your brand as an individual, because I find a lot of real estate agents can get stuck in the sole purpose of posting real estate content, when in order to build the brand, a lot of people connect with different things. Like just because you're a real estate agent doesn't mean you might not be interested in weightlifting or in running or these other hobbies that you might have. Like for me, it's like archery and then running and working out and certain things like that. Like it's share all those, because then you're going to find different ways that you can connect with your audience on different levels. It's going in for that depth, as opposed to just the surface level of the real estate stuff. But then at the end of the day, the real estate stuff is kind of always your landmark of who you are and of what you're talking about. But it's finding ways to just go deep onto who you are so you can connect with people.
I want to ask you about that. You mentioned two things. It's, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, a bit of a debate among the social agents that I've been talking to. There's camps. The one thing that you mentioned is the kind of mixing in non-real estate, sometimes personal, sometimes just far afield from real estate, but not personal. Some in one camp would say, no, not on my channel, maybe in a separate channel. So, for example, Chris Colgan, really great agent with EXP, he has his team channel, but then he has his Chris Colgan channel, right? And he's a sneakerhead, and you can see all of it. He's got a really cool collection, by the way. But you can see all that. You can see his personality shining through. But on his team channel, it's real estate related, right? And then there's another camp who says, listen, you cannot post enough. The algorithms favor frequency of posts. And so go ahead and put all of that into one channel and just post. And don't worry if people aren't attracted to, your UFC fighter interview. By the way, I would like to watch that, but not everybody would, right? But don't worry about that. Just keep posting. Where do you fall on it? Does this all live on your YouTube channel, like it's a singular one?
Yeah, a lot of it does. Now, like you said, that there could probably be a debate room of people discussing whether that's the right or wrong thing to do. And it's I understand both sides, that you can kind of train your algorithm to who you are. And like, let's say that you just want that real estate kind of audience, then stay right in that lane. But I think also too, I think the algorithms are good enough that they'll feed out. And, sometimes, I can get comments from people that may or may not like ever work with me down the road, but it's just the brand awareness. I think for me, that's what I like to focus on, is the brand awareness, kind of playing like the long game of just put myself out there in many different ways. And then also sharing that growth too, because it might change over the years, in 5-10 years, I might be interested in some other stuff. So it's kind of cool just to put these moments of time out. And then also too, it gets you to connect with, just a different audience as well. And then also, like for me, I think that variety is more important than what I think the algorithm's going to do. And I can be a little bit selfish with it at times, where I'm going, well, this is also, as much as it's, it might be better for me just to talk about real estate stuff, that is going to get boring for me eventually. And I don't want to burn out from this completely. So if I add some spice and variety into this, and that's going to increase the longevity of me being able to do it, which I think is more valuable than just kind of burning myself out on the same topic all the time.
What's interesting about this is that, especially Insta, and I wonder if the same is true for you with YouTube. What I find is when I talk to Insta agents, no matter what they're posting, they tend to attract themselves. Yeah. When you look at their demographics of their analytics, it's them, right? The same age group, same gender. And you see, even pretty people posting pictures of themselves being pretty, they're still attracting themselves. They're not attracting, the looky-loos who want to see pretty things. They're attracting their tribe who admire them and want to get to know them and want to have that same sort of lifestyle. And it makes for a very different customer. Do you find that with YouTube because of your approach?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I'd say I find that maybe more on Instagram than I do on YouTube, mainly because YouTube is a lot of real estate content, but then I will mix my podcasts up and stuff every once in a while in there. I find my YouTube page is mainly folks that are interested in the New Brunswick market, which can sometimes be a whole different demographic than I'd even expect, right? And I know what you're saying, where if you share who you are, you end up attracting pretty well like that similar type of individual. But I've also heard it this way too. I've also heard some people saying like, you don't actually know who your market is until you start putting yourself out there. And sometimes you might think that I might think my market is like people that are my age that also like the same things. But then I end up finding out that actually it's people between their 50s and 60s that are like downsizing, that for some reason, like really like the message or my style or something, right? Like, so the market ends up kind of like showing us who our audience is, when sometimes we might think it's one thing, but the market actually shows us that it's something else. So I always found that was kind of interesting. And I heard that from a real estate agent, I believe is in the States. And, he thought like he was going to be like mainly mainly like, men between like, 30 and 40, but he ended up like attracting like single moms that were like in their 40s to 50s. And it was just kind of like, he's like, that's my audience. Like, that's
That
who
was a
like,
revelation.
right. And like, but he's like, I never would have expected that. I just started putting stuff out and realized that that's who I'm talking to the most, I guess. That's who resonates with what I'm saying. So I always found that kind of fascinating, of just throwing yourself out there and just seeing what comes back, right? It's like being a lighthouse as opposed to a tugboat. The tugboat's going out there doing all the heavy lifting, moving around, when you could be a lighthouse shining on there and just seeing who ends up coming to you, right? So I always like that analogy.
It's a very common refrain of the social agents, especially Insta and Facebook too, is post, watch your analytics, see which posts work, then go put some money behind it. If you're going to
Yes.
do
Yeah.
that. I want to ask you another thing that
Watching the analytics is super important. Sorry. Watching the analytics is super, super important. I think that's something that, that I'd almost like to echo, just because you put it on the top of my mind.
Yeah,
So the
please.
analytics is something. Yeah.
Tell me why do you say that, and what should we be paying attention to?
So, especially, I'd say more so when I was first getting started, I was so heavy on the analytics. Every single video I'd put out, because I was trying to figure out how to optimize. I was trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I think that that's super important, especially when you're first starting off. Now, don't get tied into the ego of the analytics. Don't get high on your supply, or don't get bummed out because it might not be getting a lot of views. Just look at it and figure out kind of, okay, what's working and what's not. So anytime I'd post a video, I was always really just kind of watching it go and try to figure out the best times to post, trying to figure out the demographic of who was watching it. How much watch time is the video getting? What's the click-through rate? So on YouTube, you got to focus on things like the thumbnail, which is way more important than most people want to believe, because you could have the best movie out there. You could have the best video on YouTube directed by Steven Spielberg himself. But if your thumbnail is no good, then people aren't going to click it, right? Like, you need to bring people in. You need to spike their curiosity. That's the movie title. I'm dating myself a little bit, but think about walking around Blockbuster. You're just looking at that cover photo of the movie and almost making a judgment on whether or not you want to watch it based on that photo, right? So it's like, it's so, so important. That's the thumbnail.
It's a great analogy.
Right. And so the thumbnails mixed with the titles. So then figuring out what's a good title and kind of playing around with that too, and realizing that your title and your thumbnail are two different opportunities to catch somebody's attention. So don't put this, if you have words in your thumbnail, don't put that in the title too, because that's your opportunity to maybe catch somebody else's attention that you couldn't have if you didn't put the same thing twice, right? So it's like, just try to cast as wide of a net while keeping it on topic, but try to capture as many people's attention as possible. So looking at the analytics was something that I really focused on when I first started, to try to figure out what was a good video, maybe what was a good intro, realizing the intros are so important, setting the tone for that whole video, how the first 15 seconds are kind of what get watched the most, and how you need to really get your point across in that small amount of time. Kind of saying, here's what this video is about, almost setting the expectation. Here's what the video is about, and here's what we're going to cover. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to go over why this all makes sense together, and then go into your intro too, right? So it's trying to capture people's attention. And it's a lot of psychology at the end of the day, right? Trying to figure out what gets people's interest, and then also finding a way to give value while making it entertaining at the same time too. And that was always my thing, trying to bring relevant real estate information in an entertaining way. And that's what I said on the first 30 videos I did. I was like, the goal on this channel is to bring relevant real estate information in an entertaining way. If you like the sound of that, follow along for the journey. But without further ado, let's dive into the video. So I kind of have that just memorized, right? And but that was my goals: relevant real estate information in an entertaining way.
I like that. Can I ask you the other debate that I wanted to ask you about? You said, and again, there's two camps. There's the one camp that is like, hey, if you've got this long form video that you took the time to make, repurpose it, repackage it, reuse it, put it on this platform, that platform, cut it up, and blah, blah, blah. There's the other camp who says, no, don't do that. Content specific to the platform, right? TikTok likes it a certain way. Facebook likes it a certain way, Insta, YouTube. Where do you fall on that?
I think they're both right. It's just a matter of what your resources are. So if you have the resources to actually repurpose the content specifically for each platform, that's obviously ideal, because yes, that's a proper conversation, is that each platform does operate slightly different, and the same video, the same style is not going to work on every single platform. Now, so if you have the resources and you have a team of editors or something like that, then yes, that's the answer. But it's always like, if you can't do that, then repurposing it is probably still going to be better for scaling than just not doing anything, than just not doing it, right? So it's like, what are your resources that you currently have available? Do you have the time to repurpose it yourself, or are you, you know, like now with AI, there's some great tools out there, things like Opus Clip. That's what I use. So I'd always throw my videos into Opus Clip, and that almost would take the YouTube videos and it would take the best parts, more or less, and then chop them up into 60 to 90-second videos that I could then share on Instagram. I could share that on my YouTube Shorts, and then link it back to the original video and try to get more views coming in that way. So it's all about what you have resource to. So I'm completely on board, and I get that. Yes, it's better to repurpose it, and even like the text and stuff, if you can spend the time and get it right for each platform, and post like that, that is preferred. But it's also better to probably post on every platform if it's the same video, as opposed to not doing that at all, right?
And I'm curious, as you say that, how many videos are you producing a week, and are you doing the production, the editing, all of that yourself?
So when I first started off, I was doing 2 videos every week when I first started for the first 4 to 6 months, and I burned out a little quickly doing that. And I was like, okay, this is because it's and I was doing my own editing, I was doing my own filming, I was doing the post production, I was doing the upload, I was doing all of that, and I did burn out a little bit. So that's where you have to find your balance, right? So right now what I'm posting is a little bit less than where I know I should be posting. But I find there's different seasons. Like last year, I was pretty well on a streak all year. I was super, super disciplined with my content on there. I was doing podcasts. I was doing at least 2 to 3 podcasts a month, mixed with my market updates, mixed with a whole bunch of other videos talking about the local area and all kinds of different things. And that was, anytime I'm posting consistently, that's when you're getting the best results, obviously. So the best results come from the consistent posting. And I think the best formula is about 2 videos per week. If you can't do that, then the recommendation is obviously doing 1 video per week. But then also in my mind, I think that you should just post kind of as much as you can as well, which is better than nothing, right? Like even for agents. So I guess like the reason I want to say this is I don't want to discourage somebody from going, oh, 2 videos a week, that sounds like a lot, I just won't do it. Or somebody going 1 video a week, that sounds like a lot, I'm just not going to do it. Like doing something is still better than nothing, right? So there's optimal ways. There's the ideal situation of like, if you can post 2 videos a week for the rest of your life, then that is the best situation for you. But we all live different lives, and some people might find that too much. Some people might find it maybe, they might have more capacity. So it's all a matter of kind of like, I guess, who we're talking to, but doing something's better than nothing. Ideally 2 videos a week. And that's where I got to at some points of my YouTube career. And that's where I've seen the most results. And that's what Mike talks about on the Social Agent Academy, is doing 2 videos per week. And preferably batching the content is what we're taught. So finding 1 or 2 days a month and trying to film, let's say 2 to 3 videos during that day, can be the best sort of way to optimize your time. And I was always doing it kind of impromptu. So I'd do 1 video, edit it, especially when you're doing the editing and stuff, it can be a lot. And I always wanted to make it entertaining too. So I was doing all the cuts and all the edits and getting cool music and try to find funny things and like just had a vision, had always a very large vision. So I'd take probably 40 minutes of video and cut it down into a 7-minute market update, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut that part out, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to cut that was the best way I said this. And some parts I delivered 2 or 3 times to find the best way to deliver that message. So it's all a matter of kind of what your capacity is. Everybody's going to do YouTube a little bit different. Sometimes people can do it right off the cuff, right? They can just kind of open up their link of like Loom or something, and they can be down to the corner and talk their whole way through it. And sometimes that works the best because that's super authentic. And I was going on the entertainment kind of side of it. So it's all just a matter of kind of, I think, what you have the capacity for. But 2 videos a week was where I seen the most success and had the most growth and momentum when I was pumping videos out that way. But even still, right now, this last year, I've not been as disciplined as I should be. And I just looked at my analytics right before we got started, and my hours of watch time in the last 28 days is it's like 4 hours of watch time per day, pretty well. So even still, when I'm not being super consistent, there's still 4 hours a day of prospecting happening. And in my peak, it was probably 12 hours a day of prospecting. But the really cool part is if you go hyper consistent on YouTube, you can start getting, 120 hours per day of prospecting, which is just something that people then can't even keep up with. Like, you can start reaching such a vast audience that it almost becomes just impossible for anybody to outwork the amount of attention you're getting. And that's kind of where the real sauce is. And that's possible for anybody that wants to kind of put that time in. But even if you don't, I still get 60% of my business coming from the way that I'm doing it now, which has allowed me to kind of live a much more stress-free real estate career, where I'm not constantly going, I need to go out door knocking today, or I need to go out and do this, or I need to send these mailers or something, right? It's been a very enjoyable journey, and obviously some great mentors and a great brokerage.
Brandon, thank you so much for doing this. Where can people find your channel and your Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. So my YouTube channel is, so if you search up Brandon Vincent, New Brunswick, then I should be the first channel coming up there. And that's on YouTube. So if you just type in Brandon Vincent, New Brunswick, or Brandon Vincent, then my channel's on there. I got about, at the time of this filming, I think 1.7, so 1,700 subs. And then actually, impressively, my channel's over 500,000 views in total. So that just shows you the scale of kind of like how your message amplifies. And, even to this day, I get videos from 2 or 3 years ago that are getting more views than a lot of the stuff I did in the last few months. So you just never know with YouTube. You never know when something's going to pop in these evergreen pieces of content. And then Instagram is Brandon Vincent. B_Vincent Realty. It's like the hardest handle to find, but if you look up Brandon Vincent, I could come up.
Well, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.